A factory I visited 2 years ago was producing nearly 400 product variants. The MD was exhausted, planning was stretched. Supervisors were managing different configurations every shift, complaints were rising, lead times had stretched, margins had been shrinking for 3 years. When I asked why, he said something simple. Every time a good customer asked for something slightly different, we said yes. Each yes made sense. But over time, the factory became a complexity machine. And in manufacturing, complexity is a cost that rarely shows up clearly on a P&L. Hi, I am Shrikant Prabhudesai. I work with manufacturing CEOs to improve delivery, cost, and time performance so growth doesn't quietly erode margins. Today, I want to talk about mass customization, not as theory, but as something companies often get wrong and sometimes get very right. The difference usually comes down to how operations are designed. First mistake, customizing the process instead of the product. When customers ask for variation, most factories adjust the process. Different materials, different sequences, different finishing specs. It feels like good service, but over time, the shop floor becomes multiple one-off processes running in parallel. Nothing runs long enough to become efficient. I worked with a 55 crore hydraulic components manufacturer facing this. On paper, utilization looked fine, but nearly 30% of the shop floor time was lost in changeovers, rework, and waiting for variant specific information or variant specific material. The issue wasn't people or machines, it was where variation was being handled. The shift was simple but powerful. They standardized core components, same base body, same geometry, some connection standards. Customization moved to the final stage through modular additions. Changeovers dropped, inventory simplified, batch size increased, costs came down. When you customize at the end of a standard process, you get production efficiency with custom pricing. When you customize throughput, you get job shop costs without job shop margins. Second mistake, not knowing which variants make money. Most CEOs know overall margins. Few know margins by variant. I worked with an 80 crore press components company with 180 variants. They believed standard high volume products drove profitability. But a cost to serve analysis showed something completely different. Some high volume products were underpriced. Margins were thin. Meanwhile, several low volume custom variants had margins nearly double the company average. But because they were operationally difficult, sales avoided pushing them and production deprioritized them. So, the most profitable work was being underserved. Once the MD saw variant level margins, decisions changed. They invested in making high margin custom variants easier to produce, not avoiding them. Complexity and margin are not opposites. It depends on how well you understand your costs at the variant level. Third principle, customer sees difference, factory produces sameness. This is where mass customization works. The customer sees a tailored product, their specs, their dimensions, their finish. It feels bespoke. It is priced that way. But inside the factory, the process is largely the same across orders. I saw this in a 130 crore capital equipment manufacturer. Every order looked unique on paper, but on the floor, same frames, same assemblies, and the panels were being built repeatedly. Variation was in configuration, not core engineering. They had clearly defined what could vary and what could not. The result? Shorter lead times, predictable costs, consistent quality. They were charging for customization while running a largely standardized operations. The gap between perceived uniqueness and operational sameness, that is where margins live. Most factories try to solve customer variation by bending operations that works temporarily but creates complexity at scale. The ones that get it right do three things. They define a clear standard platform. They decide what can vary and what cannot. They push variation to the latest possible stage. That changes everything. how sales sells, how planning plans, and how customers perceive you. Customization becomes a margin driver when it is designed into the business. It becomes a complexity problem when it is simply absorbed. A simple question to reflect on: where does variation enter your process today? And is that the right place? Because changing that one point can transform your margins more than most decisions.